those. So we wanted you to see who was involved. So you're going to see five of the folks speaking today, or three of them, and then several have joined us for the Q&A. So you'll see from the slide the schools and the educators. Some weren't there on that picture, but I hope you catch the joy from the Zoom shot of our session together, and you'll see the list of schools, diverse in terms of location, religious representation, but all of them, and we're glad to have the Canadian representation here with Nazila from Emmanuel College in Toronto. So you'll see the variety of schools and the richness there. Here's just a snapshot of a slide that shows a little bit of what we aim to do. And what you're seeing is what's in the yellow box there, which is we concluded by having these 8 theological educators revise their syllabi. But so many other things happened during the year with aims to really equip people to situate the courses that they're doing in this broader landscape of chaplaincy, to foster a cohort of educators, which I think was really successful in this grant, and to support and empower faculty who are teaching in this area. That was extremely important to us. What we know is that although there are so many programs, we also know that many of the faculty are doing this work as the only faculty member at their school who's responsible for chaplaincy. So some of you are alone or have some support, but very little. So we're aware that the cohort also gives us a chance to have more company in the work. And Celine's asking, can I go back to the last slide? Oh, it flashed and disappeared. Okay, let me show it again, see if it, thanks for that, flagging that.
It's good now.
Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Can you still see it? All right, so I'll give you a little moment. Thanks, Celine. A little moment to linger on some of the objectives. And then, our question became really, as our sessions got deeper and deeper, the question of what are we doing? It sounds like such a simple question, but, are we really equipping chaplains to do the work that they do? And to sit with that question and to share it together was really extremely rich. Okay. So on to the good stuff. We've asked three of our folks, Joel Burning, Julie Taylor, and Nazila Iskandarova, to share with us. So they're going to share briefly who they are, what they've learned, and then we'll leave ample time for Q&A. So Joel.
Great, thank you, Shelley. Yeah, my name is Joel Burning. I'm a chaplain at New York Presbyterian Hospital here in Manhattan, and I'm also a certified educator in ACPE. So I am a practicing chaplain and a CPE supervisor here. And I've was recently enlisted by my alma mater, Union Theological Seminary, and Julie's alma mater, to teach a new class, a new offering in chaplaincy. And very generic, that was the name of the class, chaplaincy. And it's situated inside a new concentration organized at Union for students who are interested in chaplaincy, a chaplaincy concentration. That said, there's already a pretty well-developed curriculum at Union that supports, the formation of chaplains. So I found myself on the one hand with like wide open wide open space to be creative, but also trying to figure out what in it. I mean, if they already have offerings in theology and psychology, field education, social ethics, clinical ethics, pastoral care, trauma studies, there's CPE, like what's left? What is there left to teach about chaplaincy? And so what I ended up with the help of everyone here and the rest of the members of our cohort here kind of formulating was a class aimed at developing chaplain leaders, kind of broadly understood, people who would be members of our field or adjacent to our field, and lead, in thought, research, management as educators, reformers. And so I came up with a syllabus here towards developing some of those, the competencies to be like a chaplain leader. The three big streams or three highlights of the syllabus, things I'm excited about, but I can't really take credit for. Take the blame for, but not all the credit, because they're all shaped by the dialogue we had in this Wabash program. But the three big highlights. One is having each student in the class is going to have the big project that they work on, largely outside of class, is researching any two kinds of chaplaincy that interest them, and then making presentations to the class about why they're personally interested in those kinds. So it could be, healthcare chaplaincy, military chaplaincy, prison, movement, school, fire department. It could be something like Islamic, Latin American. I mean, you could conceptualize it any way you want, but just picking two different kinds of chaplaincy and interviewing chaplains of those kind, and making presentations of the class, kind of learning from each other, getting a sense of the wider range of chaplaincies that are out there. And it culminates in an essay finding similarities and differences between the two different kinds of chaplaincy and taking a stance on some issue within them. So that's one big thing that's going on. That's students' major project, research project. Two, we have readings each week, and they're organized around the written reflections and discussions are organized around provocative questions. This is something Shelley got me thinking about. So we have 1 week where the provocative question is, to what extent is the term chaplain outdated? Another week, readings and discussion and writing about how much more is there to spiritual care than helping people feel heard? Another one about, does chaplaincy require strategic vagueness, to use a word from Wendy Cadge? Does most spiritual care go to the people who need it the least? When would ministry of presence be harmful? Should board certification require endorsement? Does CPE have to be cruel? Should chaplains make diagnoses? So these are all just provocative questions. I mean, I have opinions on these, and I'll probably share those in spirit of transparency, but it's not just me transmitting my answers, but they're questions to try to get the students thinking critically about our field. So I got their major project. We got those provocative questions and readings and discussions in class. And then just the third feature I'd highlight is in the classroom discussions, they'll be facilitated in a particular way where it requires that whoever speaks up, before they bring in their own opinion or perspective, they start by reflecting back whatever the person before them said, kind of paraphrasing, giving a synopsis, a summary, or the heart of what they heard the person say, which is to me a really fundamental chaplaincy skill, just a good life skill, but really fundamental chaplaincy skill that we can build in our classroom conversations. And Julie, I don't know if you'll agree or disagree, but I think that's also represents a growing edge at Union, which in so many ways is such a rich, awesome, amazing place to learn. I'm so proud to have gone there. But I do think one underdeveloped skill at Union is the skill of agreeing, or just being able to summarize what you've heard someone say without necessarily agreeing or disagreeing, but just representing it faithfully. We're very good at learning to disagree and argue and poke holes and tear down, and just building a skill of hearing each other and finding what we can resonate with in each other. That'll be kind of the classroom format. So those are the highlights from my syllabus. That Shelley, I'm on task. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, we can.
Great.
Q&A is going to be robust. I can already see some good questions coming from the chat. So excellent. Julie?
All right. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Julie Taylor. I am the Senior Director of Contextual Ministry at Meadville Lombard Theological School, which is located in Chicago, Illinois. So as the Senior Director of Contextual Ministry, I work with internships and all the kind of contextual pieces, which includes chaplaincy, which includes CPE. In addition to that, I am also part-time I am a chaplain with the Air National Guard. So I serve the New York Air National Guard. So I'm also a working, like Joel, I'm a working chaplain as well, board certified chaplain as well. So have those pieces in my history, and that's some of what I draw from. Also affiliated faculty. So I teach, I'm kind of the one, well, sort of one deep. We're adding a few more faculty members now. So, but have been teaching like the Intro to Pastoral Ministry course, and that's kind of my corner. So at Meadville, we've got a lot of different students. We're primarily and have historically been we're a denominational school for Unitarian Universalist denominational school. And so primarily those are where our students come from. We have a growing number of folks coming from the American Humanist Association, atheist background. We've got a Christian Science student. Currently, we have a growing number of Christian students coming from a variety of traditions, in addition to those unaffiliated, and kind of doing what a lot of students I know have been doing in seminary for quite a while, which is figuring out, doing that formational piece, not just around ministry, but who are they within the context of their own faith journey, and we experience that a lot. So my particular course comes connected to a brand new chaplaincy concentration at Meadville that will begin in the fall of 2021. So we just had a huge curricular revision that started this last fall of 2020, and this new concentration begins in the fall. There's a commitment within Meadville Lombard to educating chaplains specifically, and some of that comes from a lot of the things that you all already have heard. There's certainly a growing number of folks that in the incoming classes, and those that are just prospective students, this is where people are interested in, and this is where a lot of folks are envisioning a vocation. So with that commitment comes the concentration. As a bigger context, all of our Masters of Divinity students are required to take Introduction to Pastoral Ministry as a course. They're also required to take 1 unit of CPE as part of the MDiv. Those are all done really at the beginning, usually their first year to first summer, to kick off internship and whatnot. So the course that I developed a syllabus for is really an advanced course within this new chaplaincy concentration. It has the prerequisites of both the Intro to Pastoral Ministry, CPE. We also have an Intro to Chaplaincy course that has been, we've had that for another year or so. That will be a prerequisite. This is a further along, probably a 3rd year course for students. And I decided to go a little different direction with this course, in that there are a lot of classes designed both within the Meadville curriculum, but also continuing education kinds of seminars and other kinds of ways that students can get training, dealing with a lot of that individual one-on-one chaplaincy skills around listening, around spiritual assessment, right, crisis intervention. And so rather than just do an advanced version of that, which can be had in a lot of different places, I decided to go in the direction of, what do you do when you have that job, or when you have that placement, or when you have that location, in dealing with systems, the systems that exist within organizations. So the title of my course is actually called Chaplains at Work, Navigating Organizations. And the pulse of this is really around next level building blocks, how to help students analyze and navigate systems within organizations, to be able to engage some of the goals in this is to advocate for chaplaincy, advocate for spiritual care within the context, be it military, hospital, hospice, university, justice work. How can you actually advocate? How do you talk about or write about within your organization why chaplaincy is important, and not just an add-on, or not just whatever? There's a lot, always, at least I've worked in a lot of different functions. There is often a lot of misunderstanding about why chaplains are there and what role and how they work within the context of the organization. So this is beginning to start having students think about that, and find tools to be able to navigate that. Also, let's see, competency certainly in analyzing systems of power and authority, both within the context of an organization, how power exists within the organization, but then where is one's own power within that context? That's important. So there's a care across difference, incredibly important as understanding, its importance of difference and navigating that. How, with my social location of who I am, how then do I care? What are the differences and the nuances I need to pay attention to in caring folks that are completely different. And it's like Joel said, it's not just listening, right? It's more than that. So how do we engage that? Conflict engagement, a really important piece around this as well, because conflict invariably comes up within organizations, institutions, and within the way that we have to navigate, and not just that internal thing or the one-on-one, but the bigger pieces around conflict when systems are there. Again, having worked in a lot of organizations, one of the things I have experienced and witnessed with chaplains is not recognizing that we've stumbled ourselves into a political conflict within the organization. Now we're in it, didn't realize we were in it. How do we navigate that? What's our place in it? How do we get out of it? Can we? All of those types of pieces are the things that we want to start with, building blocks for students to start considering and thinking about that, so they are more equipped to do what they need to do in the one-on-one pieces. And the last thing that we're focusing on is really this emerging body of study, of literature, of work around moral injury, and how moral injury, which initially, so much had its place within a military context, but is really expanding into so many aspects of really the work of spiritual care, not just chaplaincy, but certainly the work of spiritual care. And so as that is expanding, helping students determine and understand at least the place where it is and where it's likely to go, so that the students are ready to engage that on the cutting edge as it's coming into play within university settings, within healthcare settings, certainly within military settings. All the assignments that I have devised, and thanks to the group, have been able to cultivate and hone are really practical in nature. They are tool sets that we're using in the context of this course, but they're meant to be replicable later on in their career when they move into a new context. How do they use this tool around power analysis? How do they use this tool around determining what rituals might be necessary? So, and building rituals towards what the needs are. So that's the bulk of the course there, and I'm excited. I'm just excited for this course, but I'm also excited about all the engagement. And really, Sean is right, that being able to work with such a wide variety of people and get input and have continued relationships, I'm excited to see where this group will be able to continue those relationships. So thank you for everyone for this time.
Thank you, Julie, so much. Nazila?
Thank you, everyone, and greeting everyone. And my name is Nazila Iskandarova. I am assistant professor at Emmanuel College of Victoria University in the University of Toronto. It is Emmanuel College is associated with the United Church of Canada. It is one of the largest theological schools in Canada. It is also one of the federated theological colleges within Toronto School of Theology as well. At Emmanuel College, we provide different programs, including Master of Divinity, Master of Pastoral Studies, Master of Theological Studies, and PhD and also Doctor of Ministry programs. And supervised pastoral education or psycho-spiritual care and therapy practicum, that's what we call it at Emmanuel College too, is offered within the MPS program, because Emmanuel College community-based SPE program is only for students enrolled in Master of Pastoral Studies program at Emmanuel College. It has two streams. One of them is MPS spiritual care, and there's a second stream is MPS in certificate program in psychotherapy and spiritual care as well. We have some preconditions to enroll in psycho-spiritual care and therapy practicum or supervised pastoral education unit at Emmanuel College. And these requirements are that the students should take introduction to counseling course, and also they should have completed a minimum of 4 courses before they enroll in a supervised pastoral education unit at Emmanuel College. So it's really very unique program, unit, I would say, because we do have a hospital-based clinical pastoral education, and we also have Emmanuel College community-based SPE. And again, as I said, it is offered at Emmanuel College. However, the students, they do the practicum off-site. They go to different clinical locations to complete the clinical component of supervised pastoral education. And these sites include congregations, faith-based organizations, counseling centers, community agencies, and long-term care homes as well. And we interview the students before we assign them to these sites. So we talk to the students before they choose this site. So that depends on the background and also goals of students. For example, if the students, they are interested in working in hospital-based chaplaincy settings, and then we assign the students to the sites that meet their goals at the end. If the students, for example, they are interested in doing private psychotherapy practice later on, then we assign them to mental health agencies in order they meet their goals as well. The program is designed in such a way that it meets the requirements of CASC, Canadian Association for Spiritual Care, and also CRPO, College of Registered Psychotherapists. So the major shift in Ontario happened in 2013 when CRPO came to the scene. So in that sense, you know, many chaplain spiritual care providers, they were interested in being registered psychotherapists and affiliated with CRPO. In that regard, Emmanuel College MPS certificate program in psychotherapy and spiritual care is CRPO approved program. So that means that after the students, they graduate from our program, they are eligible to become registered psychotherapists and registered with CRPO as well. So Emmanuel College SPE unit explores the theological and also kind of applied aspects of CPE and PCE. And it is located in the intersection of the theology of caring, grief, and loss, but at the same time of social sciences, particularly psychotherapy and social psychology, family therapy, and etc. We emphasize multidimensional assessments and also the different application of spiritual, therapeutic, supportive, educational, and also strategies for individuals and also groups and families as well. So course expectation is really a very interesting, important aspect of our Emmanuel College SPE. So students are expected to complete at least 4 to 5 hours of clinical work, and they also spend 4 hours in class with me, an SPE supervisor. And also they should attend individual and dyadic supervision with me as well. And overall, we expect that the students complete at least 125 direct client contact hours when they finish their supervised pastoral education. And we designed the course in such a way that it meets the outcomes of Emmanuel College. That means that when the students, they finish the unit course, they should be able to understand major theories of theological and psychotherapeutic modalities of care. And they should understand spiritual and also professional formation, and also demonstrate leadership skills as well. The program is also designed in such a way that it meets the CASC and also CRPO outcomes. And CASC stands for Canadian Association for Spiritual Care, and CRPO stands for College of Registered Psychotherapists of Ontario. One important, we have different assignments. However, I will talk only one because I think that this assignment particularly kind of combines all the other requirements in itself. So that is a role play and case study, because in role play and case study, we expect the students to demonstrate clinical skills and meet the requirements of CAS competencies number 4, that's what we call, and also CRPO competencies number 2, 3, and 4. What that stands for? So in general, we expect the students to demonstrate the therapeutic and clinical skills when they meet with their clients. And they should demonstrate the skills of interprofessional relationship and communication. And they should demonstrate self-awareness, where BCRPO, this is called safe and effective use of self. So that is really very important demonstration. And again, I will talk, within this assignment, I will talk about the self-awareness and spiritual growth, or safe and effective of self, what that stands for. The questions that I posted in my syllabus, and you really helped how to kind of polish these questions, include what have you learned about yourself because of this encounter with the client? How do your own values, theological, religious, philosophical beliefs and assumptions influence the care you provide? How has this encounter influenced your own values, theological, religious, philosophical beliefs and assumptions? What issues arose during the encounter that should be discussed in group and also individual supervision? And students are also expected to do relevant research before they present the role play and also case study. So this is only one assignment, but besides that, we have a book review report and 10 reflection reports as well. So thank you so much for your attention, and I completely enjoyed the meetings that started from September until now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nazila. I just want to mention that one of the products, these 8 syllabi, will be posted on the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab website. That's really important, so you can actually see the work that these folks have done. I think it was Nancy who reminded me in the chat that I didn't introduce myself. So I'm Shelley Rambo, and I'm an associate professor of theology at Boston University School of Theology. I'm also an advisor at the Chaplaincy Lab. And my investment in this is that I teach a lot of chaplains, and specifically in the area of theology and trauma. So some connections with the work that the topics that Julie works on, but also shared, I think, across concerns about grief, loss, trauma, and its impact in the work of spiritual care. So that's me. I also want to welcome on our 2 other colleagues, part of the cohort, who will join us in the Q&A. We have Dwight Friesen, who teaches at the Seattle schools, waving at us, and Lee Miller, who is joining us by audio. Oh, and Jeannie as well. So Lee is at Maitripa College in Portland, and Jeannie, I think maybe on an airplane or an airport. So Jeannie, welcome. We're joining the others for the Q&A, and Jeannie is at Perkins School of Theology. So we have almost all of our cohort represented, but thanks to those who agreed to prepare comments. Michael, do you want to guide us into the Q&A? We have a good 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have some great questions here. So they're a little long, but that's good. And that just means they're detailed. So give me a second to ask them. And most of these are not directed at anyone in particular. So I'm just going to ask them, and whoever feels moved can answer them. So Sarah asked, I would love to hear what the group has learned about the tension between teaching chaplaincy as a general discipline versus teaching particular types of chaplaincy, prison, military, etc. How can an educator have experience in one sector and teach others in a different sector, or teach it more generally? I think the question is just, what is the difference between chaplaincy at this level and then down sort of in the trenches? Thank you, Sarah.
Don't be shy.
Do we need to volunteer
We'll
someone?
call on you.
Well, I can say something, which is, I really only know one sector, healthcare chaplaincy, and even within that, it's not like I know all of healthcare chaplaincy. I just know what one particular, or maybe a couple different sort of areas of that. So I'm not sure I resolved that tension successfully in the syllabus. I mean, the proof will be in the pudding, but that's really where that idea of the assignment for the students. Also, admittedly, it came from my own, like, I do not have the capacity between now and when this class launches to become familiar with every different sector. So, I mean, it's nice, you know, the overlap of my limitations / laziness and an educational opportunity for the students is like, let them do that. Let them follow their passions, their interests, whatever fields or sectors they're interested in, get out there, use the resources of the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab, use whatever else they can find, and try to meet actual practitioners in those areas and mind those fields. I can kind of guide them in you know, some of the questions to ask or what to look for. But the content itself will just come from the students, and they'll share it with each other. And then, you know, God willing, in year 2 of it, I'll know more about a bunch of sectors, and we'll roll it again, and it'll be students' passions will lead to even more. So that was the way I tried to. Well, I guess that's one half of the tension you're talking about, Sarah. And the other half is, so admittedly, the content that's presented in readings and lecture and discussions does skew towards healthcare, the healthcare sector. And I'll try to be transparent about that. So, you know, students get whatever, you know, that's the best I can offer. So that's kind of how I navigated that myself, or am navigating it going forward.
Yeah, for me, it's, and I had to go find the question again. Once it got answered, it moved, so I had to find it. So I'm glad I could see it now to read it. I think for me also, letting it more be student led in terms of interest, certainly for details in terms of some of the assignments that I assign. The earlier course, so my particular course isn't dealing with those particularities in the same way that the earlier, like, Intro to Chaplaincy course that is part of our concentration goes into specific military, prison, university, healthcare, and the different aspects of healthcare. That's what that course already has set up. So my course didn't have to go into those basic pieces. That is looking more at the larger, okay, in whatever setting you are, how's power working? How is this happening here in your particular, so that the tools could be used regardless of wherever they wind up working, and let them take kind of those assignments wherever they want to go. And that's similar to Joel. That's how I was thinking about this syllabus in particular, on those ways. I have experience in a couple sectors. There's a whole lot of sectors I don't have experience in, and so also bringing in practitioners, you know, this new content and doing things online. It's easy to call somebody in and say, hey, can you come in for this session, you know? And now we've got more people that we've all met around the country that have other kinds of relationships, right? If I want to talk, we've got some students from Canada. If I want to call Toronto right now, I've got somebody at New Zealand who can maybe speak to this piece. How would that work in Canada? And so I think also working our networks to bring those actual voices in, rather than me trying to imitate the voices, also becomes really important.
I might chime in here as well. I'm Dwight Friesen, and my institution actually does not have a chaplaincy program per se. And so when as I began to develop my syllabus in this work, I actually ended up creating a proposed certificate program that could be housed and fit within my institution. And in my first draft of that, as I was imagining assignments, courses that would sort of fill out such a certificate for my program, I actually drilled into specific sectors and had classes sort of targeting, you know, military chaplaincy or hospital chaplaincy and so on. And part of the feedback I heard back from the group was to step back from that a little bit and maybe nestle some of those sector-specific specialties in the hands of the students themselves, in the hands so that they have the opportunity to do the research that's really unique to their particular context, and then I'll even allow some flexibility in assignment focus so that they can really develop the capacities that were necessary for them. And I found that to be quite freeing, actually. So in the second draft of my syllabus and certificate program, I actually stepped that stuff back, because what I was really looking at is, like, what are the capacities that I want to build into my students so that they're more likely to become, like, able to step into a context as a chaplain, not with chaplaincy background, but actually confident in who they are as a person, providing spiritual care in this world. And I think that for me is part of the question that we're all trying to wrestle with, is like, yes, we've got to figure out the skill sets and we've got to figure out how to accredit all this stuff and so that it all makes sense and we're on the same page. But at the end of the day, we're really trying out of our respective traditions to help each other grow and learn and say, okay, what kind of being do I need to become so as to provide the kind of care that allows people to not only that sort of to define the healing through connection that chaplaincy uniquely provides. And so that was part of what I was hearing in our conversations. I was really grateful for. I don't know if that addresses the question, Sarah, but that's where I went with it.
Thank you all. Another question, I think this is really important. The Humanist Canada has started an accreditation process to develop humanist chaplains for Canadian institutions and clientele. What kinds of curriculum amendments, additions, etc. are your schools doing to incorporate secular chaplains who want to serve an institution not as a religious representative?
I can go first. Very important question, because the question reflects the multi-phase kind of changes that we witness in Western society. So first heard the term a few years ago in Norway and also in Denmark, where they talked about the humanistic chaplaincy in different settings, including in prison setting, military setting, and also in hospital setting as well. I think that our course, Emmanuel College, is very multi-phase, interface education institution, and we have different students coming from a Buddhist background, Christian background, Muslim background, and also students they don't have they identify themselves as spiritual, but they are not affiliated with any religious traditions. And we designed the program and also the syllabus in such a way that it includes different readings and also different case studies, definitely, and role plays, because this during the practicum, students meet with clients who don't have any religious affiliation. They identify themselves as spiritual, or even they don't identify themselves as spiritual. So in that regard, we identify the needs that we need to change the curriculum in such a way that students feel comfortable and they do have knowledge base and also skill base to work with people who identify themselves as humanist or spiritual.
So I just want to underscore that this question is so rich, because when you start thinking about your courses in relationship to the broad landscape of what's happening, what's emerging, for instance, if you have a very tradition-specific school, like for my school, kind of rooted in the United Methodist tradition, but who comes to the school is just across the range, you know? So the question is, how do you train people for the work of care, right? How do you train them to do that with like the robustness of the traditions that they bring? And then what happens in the classroom is like generative and rich and generous. So how does your curriculum welcome that diversity, honor traditions and wisdom traditions that people bring? And then the realities of, oh, I've got to get ordained in the Presbyterian church, and I've got to become a board certified chaplain, or I just want to be a community chaplain and it doesn't seem like you have any need credentials for that. So all of these questions are really live, which is what determines the curriculum. And so I love Dwight's invitation to say, there are spiritual needs. We understand the work that we do is contributing to healing. How do we direct our courses towards that, but also recognize skills and competencies language are necessary for kind of arguing or advocating for chaplaincy, let's say in a healthcare setting, right? You're not just a big heart floating in the hallway. It's like you have to, have some research competencies to partner with, other care providers. So all of that, I think, is makes it very lively to say, you know, the humanist chaplain is sitting in the classroom with the Muslim chaplain and the Southern Baptist chaplain, and they may be training for different sectors of chaplaincy. So it's just like an imaginative exercise, but in fact, it's not, because it's the reality of a lot of our classrooms. You know, going into National Guard, going into healthcare, want to be a social movement chaplain. So the question of like, what do you do with that? Diversity, honoring it, respecting it, and then really contributing to the effective work that people are doing in their settings. Whoa, you know, that's a lot, right?
One of the things that struck me, I think Trace brought this to us maybe in week 3 or in our 3rd or 4th month. I can't remember exactly when he brought it, but I mean, we all know that the religious landscape in the United States and the West is changing significantly. And he was even raising question whether some of the traditional institutional religious structures are maybe pivoting to a kind of neighborhood. We're seeing the business or the corporate chaplaincy explode, but this idea of like community or neighborhood chaplaincy, where people located within their own particular tradition are collaborating with people across traditions to provide spiritual care, but also to provide meaning making in local businesses and in local neighborhoods and so on, which is kind of like a faith community that's not rooted in a tradition, but unto a set of values or something. Like, I don't exactly know. It seems like the research is still burgeoning, but I think chaplaincy is an interesting thing in this regard to hold in relationship with institutional leadership, religious leadership, as it's historically been held.
So we have a question about healthcare chaplaincy, but I think it's significant because it applies basically to everyone who's being trained as a chaplain. There's ongoing confusion in hospital chaplaincy regarding how chaplain support differs from that offered by social work when the support is not specifically religious or spiritual. How can chaplain education better help chaplains understand and explain their specific role in a society that increasingly identifies as being not religious? It's a great question.
I'll do a really quick jump in with this. I think, first of all, that's one of the right that with the question, how might chaplain education better help chaplains understand and explain? First of all, lifting up the fact that they need to do that. I think that's the first level of it. That I know, you know, our students go take their first unit at CPE. They're brand new. They haven't even doing residencies and all. It may not occur to them initially that they need to recognize, well, what is the difference? And how do I talk about that in a way that's not a versus, or it's not just a, well, we do this, we know you do that, but we do that. How do they even engage it? I think one of the ways that educating chaplains to do is, first of all, recognize they need to start figuring those pieces out and explore and expand their own understanding of what they personally can do, but also not just about their personal place, but what does chaplaincy as a vocation provide? And then that's a general place within the education form. And then wherever they wind up serving, they need to also learn and understand how chaplaincy is different than, let's say, social work at that institution, because there are going to be generalities, but there's always going to be specifics that are going to be different in how it's integrated, what's the historical placement for it, where's the power lie within it. And so all of those pieces need to be there. But I think it starts with awareness that those dynamics and those tensions are going to be there, and not just for me, it feels irresponsible for me as an educator to let them go and start on that road, knowing that that's going to be an obstacle, without letting them know, hey, this obstacle might be there. Let's start considering it now.
I'll just to add to what you mentioned, Julie, I agree with what you mentioned. In addition to that, I would say that cultural competencies and spiritual understanding kind of required across the disciplines, including social work and nursing. However, when you look at the education requirements for social work and also nursing, for example, or occupational therapy, you see that they don't have a tremendous knowledge base in terms of theological and religious understanding and spiritual understanding of the client. So in that respect, our training and chaplaincy offers a unique training how to understand various spiritual and religious needs of our clients. So that is really first difference between social work discipline and also spiritual care discipline. And the second difference, what I see in Canada, and I will talk about the context that I am located in. So social workers in the hospitals, they are so busy, and for example, with admission, discharge, and different things. So they don't have much time to spend with clients to address the existential crisis, moral dilemma, for example, or suffering and grief and loss. And in that respect, chaplains, they are unique healthcare providers that address those needs in hospital healthcare settings.
Michael, do we have time for one more?
Yes, I think we have time for one more. This is a great question to end on. Where is a good place to start for curriculum design for a new chaplaincy program?
You start with Dwight. Well, I will let Dwight weigh in on this, but you know, we get this a lot. The lab gets this question a lot, which is, how do you create a new program at your school if you don't have an existing one? Or how do you think about redesigning, right? So we're talking here about a course, but many of us could think about why is it that our programs look so diverse when our students are going into, you know, particular sectors? So is there something more shared than is really happening? So I just want to give up a lot of questions, but the lab is working on some materials. For one is an ebook on how to start, what to think about if you're thinking, your school's thinking about starting a program. So some of this stuff is, we're realizing the need for, or the interest in the need, and for some guidance. So I'll just say, maybe the quickest way to say that is keep looking on the lab's website for in the late fall. For the person who's asking that question, in November and December, some things will be posted. Quick answer.
Well, since you gave me a shout out, I would say this lab, I could not have created what I created without my participation in this lab and working with my colleagues in this space. Honestly, I've been at my institution for almost 20 years. The entire time I've been there, we have a strong theological, cultural, and psychological emphases and degree programs. We've talked about chaplaincy the entire time, and we've never built anything. We've never designed anything. And when this opportunity came up, I was like, I mean, this seems like the chance to learn something and to throw something together. And I'm actually super proud about what I've created. To be honest, what I've put together it right now is an institutional work of fiction. My school has not pulled the plug. They have not invited me to teach the class or to develop the program or certificate, but it's a starting place, and it's a piece of fiction that's nestled within a context of a real institution. With Shelley's help, I was able to go back and re-look through all of our course catalog and see what do we have already that we can build on. All that to say is, listening to my colleagues here and locating myself where I am, I feel like this cohort was able to help me like bring those things into a more beautiful dance of sorts. And there's something about working with colleagues and listening to people from different traditions that just opens you up and enlarges your imagination for what is possible. And so I'm really grateful. So I hope you have a chance to take a look at it. It's just a starting place, and I'm sure, like all of us, we would welcome any questions. If you want to reach out and follow up, you'd be welcome to do so. Thank you.
I think I just want to say one thing in closing, which is there was a lot of energy of faculty who are interested in doing this. Wabash was generous to support it, but they don't tend to like do the same thing over. So if you're really excited to as a faculty member, or even someone working as a CPE supervisor working on didactics, if there's energy around this, just contact the Chaplaincy Lab, and we'll use that growing energy to see if we can continue some of these kind of initiatives. I think Celine is having connectivity problems.
Okay.
So Celine put that wonderful comment in the chat, and also directed everyone to the website where the syllabi will be and more about this initiative.